Controversy swirling around the deal worked out by the White House to free Bergdahl. In exchange for his release, the U.S. freed 5 top Taliban detainees from Gitmo. And now some Republican lawmakers fear the president is breaking the law. They say this is illegal. Congressman Buck McKee and Senator James Inhofe releasing this statement. In executing this transfer, the president also clearly violated laws which require him to notify Congress 30 days before any transfer of terrorists from Guantanamo Bay and to explain how the threat posed by such terrorists has been substantially mitigated. Our joy at Sergeant Bergdahl's release is tempered by the fact that President Obama chose to ignore the law, not to mention sound policy, to achieve it. Congressman Buck McKee and my guest now, Chairman of the House Armed Services Committee out of Washington. Sir, good morning to you and welcome back here to America.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Why is this illegal in your view?
Last year, we passed our National Defense Authorization Act, passed out of committee 59-2, overwhelming support, both Republican and Democrat, passed on the floor of a House over 3-1. Everybody supported this law that stated, and the president signed it, even though he, I guess, now says he had a disclaimer on it. But his responsibility is to administer and uphold the laws that are passed by the Congress. And the law stated that before any detainee is released from Guantanamo, the Congress should be informed at least 30 days prior to that release. That never happened. And in fact, now, more than 72 hours after this deal was done, we still have not been told what they're going to do to ensure that these top 5 Taliban leaders do not re-enter the fight. I mean, they have blood of thousands of Afghans and Americans on their hands, and we're releasing them to Qatar, and that's all we know. Our information is coming from the media. We're not hearing from the administration. You know, I heard Ambassador Rice say they've been talking to us for 3 years. They talked about the fact that they were negotiating with the Taliban for a future peace. Never talked about Sergeant Bergdahl. And if they have been talking for 3 years, you'd think they could have let us know at least 30 days before what they had in mind.
It seems the deal is done and passed now. What's the recourse, if any?
We will be holding hearings. We will look into this. You know, this president has a reputation, I think well-deserved, of deciding which laws he's going to enforce and which laws he's not going to enforce. In fact, I recall that his Attorney General, who has a major responsibility for enforcing the laws, told at a convention, I guess, the state's attorneys general that they could not enforce certain laws if they didn't want to. I just think that goes against all of our basic, we were built on a constitution. We were a nation of laws. And what makes us different from other countries is the fact that we follow the Constitution and we follow the law. Whether we like it or not, once it's passed by the Congress and signed by the President into law, that is to be followed. There is a way to test those laws if people don't believe they're constitutional, and that then would go through the court system and up to the Supreme Court. But until the Supreme Court reverses any law, it is the law of the land.
Understand the point you're making. Mike Rogers says he was in the loop on the capture of UBL months in advance. You mentioned Susan Rice. She was talking on Sunday. Here is how she characterized this action now.
This opportunity is one that has been briefed to Congress when we had past potential to have this kind of arrangement. So it wasn't unknown to Congress. The Department of Defense with the Department of Justice. And given the acute urgency of the health condition of Sergeant Bergdahl, and given the President's constitutional responsibilities, it was determined that it was necessary and appropriate not to adhere to the 30-day notification requirement, because it would have potentially meant that the opportunity to get Sergeant Bergdahl would have been lost.
There she is on the record. Are you suggesting that if Congress was notified, you would have nixed this deal, the exchange for 5 detainees?
I don't know that we would have or not, because we still haven't heard the details. We don't know what they're doing about these 5, how they're going to keep them out of the fight. we just are in the dark, and that is a violation of law, no matter what she says. It really is kind of ironic because this is kind of playing out much like Benghazi, where they kind of do or don't do something, and then kind of come up with a story afterwards of why they did or didn't do something. This is really mind-boggling that they feel that they can just do whatever they feel. Doesn't matter what the law says. There is a purpose.
And you're saying hearings will happen?
They will.
Okay. Buck McKeon, we're out of time.
We will try to get to the bottom of this.
Thank you for your time today out of Washington. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bill.